special guest that we have. We've had Andre on before, and had the pleasure and opportunity of working with Andre over the last several months. And I think it's going to continue to be several years. And welcome, Andre. And Andre is the partner that every realtor needs to have when it comes to being in real estate. We need a really, really, really good mortgage broker that understands this industry. And Andre, always awesome to have you.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having me on the show, Michelle.
You're welcome. And thanks for bearing with the background and so on. I mean, I will say, if we wait until it's perfect, we'll never do it.
Definitely. Yes. Yep. But
and
we're in the present.
Awesome. I'm a bit of they have me moving in a number of different directions, and we're evolving, if you will. But if I'm, I don't have the background, and bottom line, I'm really going to be looking forward to the new laptop where I can put that background in it. So
backgrounds make it. Where are people able to watch this right now, or where are people watching this right now?
Really good question. And actually, we're in process. I'm going to bring in a few people. So we have people right now. Majority of the people are in Ontario that are watching. We have, from I usually kind of focus. So I've got some people watching from Kingston. Yep. I am going to share very quickly onto our page, and there's about 400 that follow us on our page, if you will. I've chimed in a few people that know me really well, and they've been following, learning. One lady, Marcel, who you may know, and she's kind of been in progress. But we're all about kind of the growth, evolving. So I would far better be showcasing here than in a private webinar, because at the end of the day, we never know. It's always that little data nugget that, did I learn that from somewhere? And wait a second, where did I learn that from? And I'm a huge believer, a huge proponent.
Awesome.
Yes. So for today, and I think, we've had a special series over the course of November. And it was really more geared it's real estate, interpreting the market, investing, just educating people on what's happening. And if they're going to consider purchasing, or if they're ready to purchase, some people will come wait and maybe the market's going to go down, maybe this, maybe that. And Andre, we get asked that question, when's the best time to purchase? And
the answer simply is now. NOW, right? Because at the end of the day, people have to realize that you're buying not for today or tomorrow, following the fad of prices up, prices down. That only really matters when you're exiting, right? But if you are looking to buy a property to live, if you're paying rent and that rent is being diminished into thin air, I say diminished because, you're basically paying and there's no recoup on that rent, right? So you're basically blowing that money up. Whereas if you had a property and you were paying into it, even if, say, prices dropped down in the road to come, at the end of the day, that money that you're paying is still paying down the principal on this mortgage. So eventually it will rise again, right? And when it does rise, then at least that money you invested is now recoupable.
Yep. I had a really good question asked the other day. So, for those that are watching, Andre, I'm a huge believer in, just because we speak with people, that doesn't mean they're ready to buy. They might own a home and they're trying to get some information, because there's always a motivation behind why are they buying or why are they selling.
Absolutely.
And you're right. When getting into the market, if you're renting, I usually will convey to renters, if I'm speaking with them and they're considering, once I find, they're working full time, they've started their down payment, or they've got some down payment, or I let them know, it's a privilege for me to help them, because I don't want them making me rich. I don't mind people renting. I love it. But if I'm going to work with you as a customer, I want to help you, invest in yourself. Yeah. So, but we had another gentleman inquire. They have a home that they own today. They're considering investing. They're considering that second property, but they're doing it on their own.
Yeah.
So he asked me what my opinion was, and this was his, I call it a kind of a use case. Him and his wife own a property. It is about he claims 1.5, 1.6 million. And their son lives in the basement.
Yep.
And they were trying to figure out, okay, they have a $465,000 mortgage left on the property, and they want to buy another property.
Yeah.
Their initial thinking, and this is what he asked me my opinion, said, I'm thinking of seeing if I could get a renter that will pay me 1 year in advance, and then I could take that money, and that money I could use then as a down payment. So he wanted to know, like, I'm just starting to get into this. And so I said, all right.
Light bulbs with that one, right?
Yeah. I said, okay, well, I'm going to give you my professional opinion. Do you ever see a bicycle? And he said, yes. I said, put 4 square. I said, I want you to put square tires on it and try and make it go uphill. You might be able to do it, but that's really what my thought is. And I said, now let's talk about what real estate investing is.
Yeah.
I said, you have a mortgage. I said, what's your interest rate on your mortgage? That's about 2.5%. I said, both you and your wife working? You guys make good income? Yep. Okay. So question, that's your money.
Yeah.
Why don't you go back and see if they can do better?
Yeah.
See if you can leverage, because it's all about, it's not just one component, it's the whole solution.
Absolutely.
We have a couple of really good mortgage brokers that we work with, but I don't want to introduce you unless I know, this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
And he never thought about it that way. He really leaned into what I had to say, Andre, but what I found interesting is we are such creatures of habit. So I did say to him, I said, I'm in all privacy, I'm not going to even mention any names, call him Alex. I said, Alex, let me just share this. Human beings, we're all about habits. As much as we want to say, you've got to listen, as much as, what, I'd love to say that, but I worked too many years in that industry knowing how our brains work. And we're more creatures of habits than anything. So you're going to find, you're going to pull you grew up in an era where pay all your debt off, all the debt. And you know what? That's not a bad thinking. But if you're thinking of leveraging, you got to, and the moment you buy, and the moment you buy a property, like, that's investing. There's going to be risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to mitigate your risk. And secondly, we can't even ask for a posted check, never mind 12 months in advance anymore. That's just against the Landlord and Tenant Act.
Correct. Nor
So
very find a tenant that has that situation, because if they did, then why wouldn't they just buy a property, right? That's their down payment money.
I don't even think about that. Well, so true. So very true. But, I think so many people, Andre, just, they don't know where to start. We know that this is an investment for them, and they need a team. They need a team. So what are you seeing right now? I mean, I have a million questions, but what are you experiencing right now with what's happening in Ontario? What's happening with, are you seeing anything unusual? Are you seeing, again, more demand?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, there's been a lot of ramped up activity happening, right? Like, again, everybody's concerned about tomorrow now, right? Like, we've weathered this storm for quite some time, and now it seems like we're having a relapse here that's unveiling in front of our eyes, right? So it's kind of like whoever wasn't on the bus before is now thinking about, okay, what do I do? Because at first, this whole deferral thing was the go-to holy grail of, just don't pay your mortgage, go on a mortgage vacation. And then afterwards, people realize that there's more to it than just that. But then now that this whole condo market changes, things of that, like, there's all these little red flag indicators, right, as to what's coming next. So the advice is simple. Talk to, like you said, a mortgage professional, talk to a realtor, and figure out, what your options are, because that is where the burden of proof lies, in the options. And that's, like you said, you touched the nail on the head, right? Where it's simple, like, because people only know what they know, right? And if you just sit and discuss amongst the people that I'm not like saying to you that that's a bad thing or whatnot. Yes, you must. But again, if they only know what they know, then you have to seek a higher level of learning, or somebody that can enlighten you to other options, right? Because
absolutely.
the power of conversation is powerful, right? Because you talk to people, let them know what you're thinking, and then they will tell you something else. And then, you know, you like you said, you get another idea, and now that's another stride to go for, right? Because that gentleman right there in that scenario, it's simple. Like, the mortgage is paid off, you got all this equity. If you simply look at refinancing the property, pulling out that equity, you would realize that the payment that you're going to be paying next is still going to be similar to what you're paying now. And you would now have that hardcore capital to invest into another property, so be it, right? And then you can get a tenant in there, or, you know, you have options. You can probably buy 2 or 3 properties with that much equity, right? Again, to each his own, because some people, again, are not wanting to have tenants and whatnot based on the current configuration of, you know, what happened here with job loss, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's protocols that you can look at now with essential services, right? In terms of those industries, right?
True. What I found, because we manage, like through the CC Realty, we manage about 120 properties.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, you know, if we look at AI, which is of course artificial intelligence, and we look at BI, business intelligence, and then we look at human predictive behavior, which is the whole personality assessment. I mean, look at broadcast, like it's all behavior. So interesting when you're vetting, you know, because that's what we have to do, and determining who gets that property and who doesn't, and anybody that's helping. This is also another way that people can really mitigate their risks by just learning what to look for.
Yeah,
they have the choice. They don't have, like, there is a demand for affordable living. There's just a demand, period. We just, based on the number of people moving in, we helped someone the other day lease out, and it turned out he was a famous hockey player.
Oh wow!
And which is kind of interesting, right? I mean, but it's like, that's all great. I still got to make sure the numbers. I mean, they did. That was all fine. It would be a little strange if they didn't. But that's the other part. So people that are kind of really concerned about, oh, is the tenant going to take advantage? They're not going to pay. And we had, and I remember there was another one that I had to tenant, one of my own properties, and I looked for those things. I needed to know what kind of a job they had. I wanted to know the type of job, how long they've been working for. Is that job going to be around for a while? So fortunately, one was government. She was scaling up. That job's not going to go away.
Yeah.
And the other partner, same thing. It was actually he had a job with the city.
Yeah.
Credit rating's good. So there's, you know, we have to look at stuff like that.
Absolutely. No, but you're right? Because again, people think it's like you have to just take whichever tenant comes there, right? It's like you, at the end of the day, get to pick, choose, and refuse. And as well, there's measures that you can put in place. Like, you know, you have a line of credit per se that you implement into your fallback assets that can cover the spread if and so the tenant is unfortunately not able to pay, right? So it's not like you're just going to be sitting there banking on this money that now you stretch yourself to a place where it's unbearable, right? So
true. So Andre, what do you, like, I got to ask you that magic question. Where do you think we're going to be in the next 3 to 6 months?
In the next 3 to 6 months,
yeah.
I foresee that the current trending upwards of pricing and whatnot and activity will remain. I mean, obviously, we're talking about winter months there in that calculation. And as always, things taper down a bit, right? So that's going to naturally take course. But I think because of everything that happened, we're kind of at a late blooming spring, summer market still tailing off right now. There's still a lot of purchase activities happening here in the months of November, which historically doesn't happen right now. So it kind of, the big thing out there right now is that it doesn't matter who you listen to in terms of this questioning, it's that nobody has that crystal ball to tell you exactly that this is what it's going to be, right? So it's kind of like, you know, you have to look at your unique situation and what it is that you're trying to accomplish and then work around that, right? Because that's the key to it. Because I think as much as, yes, mortgages are all mechanical in terms of it's A, B, and C, and you meet these criteria, you're good. There's still other factors that have to really get looked into as to the long-term point, as to, you know, where you stand, what's your future goals. Because I'm sure you see a lot of people are hearing on the news now that, these high penalties on mortgages, and that's going to be something that is very, very vivid in terms of the future with these low rates right now. And people are just going towards rates and wanting to get the best rate. But again, they're not really looking at where they will be in 5 years from now. And then those same low rates that they're chasing now will then, show them a high penalty at some point if need be, right? And again, nobody knows what tomorrow brings, but again, you got to look at the big picture and don't just get, looking at focusing on rates only, right?
Yeah. Like there's different, I call them components, there's different components that make up that whole solution. So never to just look at that one. You kind of got to look at everything. So like you say, the cost of breaking your mortgage, find out what that is. Because if that can outweigh what you're going to establish in the savings, then that kind of gives the answer. I mean, there's or you can come to crazy people like us and I'll do Excel spreadsheets and I'll help you kind of plug in the numbers, because sometimes our clients ask for that and it, and it's relevant. I've done that for a couple of clients, more on just the overall cost, not on the mortgage stuff, because Andre, you're the first person I call in this arena. And but it's all how all the solution works.
So what's your prediction for the next 3 to 6 months on your side?
It's an excellent question. And this is why I find it fascinating. The data that I follow is we look at just the bent up demand. And we know the bent up demand are not only, so let's look at the entry market, the first time home buyers. Let's look at the newcomers, so coming in. Let's look at the investors. So there's that's just three, if you will. And then we marry that with the shortage of inventory. We knew there was a shortage of inventory from the beginning, like a year ago, even pre to that. We had 400,000 people predicted to move into Ontario purely from an immigration talent. We've been on a talent war for 20 years.
Absolutely.
And then we now also have the same prediction over the next year over year. And that's, if you follow it for 20 years, you'll see the Ontario kind of unfold. Then we look at, even when we look at pre-construction, even when we look at, we're seeing it, there's that demand. So I see the demand there. And then I think, well, there's the demand. So if there's not enough inventory and that demand keeps coming in, real estate isn't complicated, it's supply and demand. And then you look at the rates at an all-time low. And then we look at, do they want to, from what I've interpreted, the Bank of Canada, they're not really looking to raise the rate, like they don't want to upset the apple cart. So I see a steady increase. It's interesting what I'm seeing now, because we belong to like a couple different boards, and I'm seeing where the bar's been pushed and the prices have gone up. There's a little bit of a ceiling I'm starting to see, and we're starting to see some properties sit that might have the offer date, but they didn't get anything. So then what they've done is they've just readjusted the price to, this is what we want. Usually when they hold off offers, and this is another thing I really emphasize to people, is just because you see a price, that doesn't mean it's valued at that price. And I mean, so let's find out if it's market value or if it's priced under market to draw more people in. If there's an offer date, the strategy is, let's put an attractive price to it. Let's bring as many people to see it, and then hold back offers, and everybody on this day, give me your offer. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, have you noticed any of those type of deals where the appraisal values are matching and stuff like that? Because again, I'm speaking from my side of it, and this is something that happens here, right? And like buyers have no choice, right?
That's right. I've heard through our the brokerage that we're plugged into. I've heard through other colleagues, there's a few deals they've had to walk away. They were not getting approved. So they financially got approved, but once they submitted the accepted offer and the APS accepted offer and MLS, then the lenders, they took a look at it and they like, no, it's not valued at that. So and that actually gives me peace of mind. Is we don't want the market to keep going like this. We need a nice steady to allow. So now, touch wood all around me, we haven't had that on our end. We try to make sure they're, again, the same thing. We want them pre-approved beforehand, but it's the lender, the end lender and the insurer that determine the final say.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's prevalent right now in what's going on. But
But I did hear, and I heard from, and this is actually, he's in the, I think he's in the management consulting industry, originally a fairly newcomer, I would say. And what he's anticipating, I mean, Canada's pretty sought after.
Yep.
I had heard that, our Ontario government over a course of time wants to figure out how to double our population.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a little bit of a forward thinker in that I can't wait until we can tap into the real green solutions and figure out how to build off the grid and build communities and that are more functional but that's future. That's my upside down thinking. So.
No, that's actually smart thinking, future forward thinking, right? So
well, it's interesting. I'm familiar with the smart grid that they had proposed in Toronto, and it was supposedly done by Google, but yet it was a 15-year-old dated model. It's dated. We don't need that. Yeah. So it's amazing how little the truth can get to the consumers. And most consumers would just, it's what we're used to. Most of us is what we're used to. So, but there is some, like, there's really, there's unbelievable solutions out there, Andre, on the green side, on the eco side, and not just in Canada. Like, I mean, these are, global, like they're billion-dollar companies and what's been evolving in other countries. So it's quite fascinating to see what we're going to see, I think, in the next 10 years. Okay. Financials come into play. All of this stuff comes into play. Mm-hmm. You may be aware we're developing out in Halifax right now, CC Realty. Oh, so, it'll be interesting. We'll kind of maybe look at about a 36-month down the road. But it's to me, it's like, well, where are the demands and what do people want? And there's still not enough options out there for what lifestyles are looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's always room for more new construction, right? As you said,
absolutely.
A lot in demand. So definitely, that's a huge driving force.
Yeah. So there'll come a day. But right now we're in scale. Like we don't have a shortage, if you will. It's more of just the experience and not always understanding. This is a solution, right, Andre? Like you said, your mortgage brokers are the same as real estate brokers, agents. We have to work hand in hand. Mm-hmm. I find it amazing when we do speak to people where they're asking us, and the first thing I say is, well, you know what, I can give you an orientation, but I'm not a mortgage broker. Like I've done the courses, but I'm not a mortgage broker, and nor do I care to be. So, Andre, it was enough to. I'm glad I understand conceptually. My other partner, Cindy's, she knows it even more inside and out. Mm-hmm. But again, we got to work hand in hand because that's the financial piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Where do you think? I have a different question, and that's just in Toronto. I got asked this the other day. So we all know Toronto has, where do we? There's no more land, so you got to grow up. So we have condos.
Yeah.
So what do you think the condo market will be like in the next kind of in the next sort of 24 months? Andre, are you seeing any kind of trending with saturation or with?
Definitely downtown in terms of the whole working from home situation. So there's a lot of exiting of the market, right? I'm sure you've seen listings are going up a lot of condominiums in the downtown core, right? Because of the simple fact that there isn't that many people. A lot of the persons that were living there, they moved out, right? To go back to live with mom and dad or whatever the case may be, right? So I believe that, yes, the Toronto core condo market is going to see a downwards turn. But from the suburb standpoint, I don't see any changes there in terms of people still living there. It's just more of the core, right? Because again, they are highly priced, right? Units, like you're talking in the 3,000s and 2,500s for a small space studio apartment, right? So when you really look at it, like, why spend all that money to be crammed in one little spot if you can now take that same 2,500 and get a whole house, right? Somewhere in the outskirts, right? So naturally, it makes sense.
Very true. Very true. What Andre, another question that I have, and this is maybe a little different. We kind of know the first time home kind of scenario coming in. But what about the move up buyers? The move up buyers that may think they qualify, they're going to have this much, but do you see much in that space with, because I know my thinking is whether you're moving up or not, you still need to get pre-qualified.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even the other way, trending, like where take advantage of this big upswing in prices and selling a bigger house to move further out to, you know, the outskirts again and downsizing, and you're almost mortgage free or still having a mortgage, right? So I have clients in that predicament, and I have clients on the other side of the fence where, as you said, taking advantage of the equity build up and the principal pay down and using that to leverage to get to a bigger space, right? So like you said, yes, a pre-approval is 100% necessary, right? You have to definitely talk to a mortgage professional or your bank and do the due diligence to run the numbers to know where you'll stand in terms of, yes, if you're gonna buy a bigger price, then naturally your mortgage payments should go up, right? But again, depending on the fact that where you are on the amortization schedule, meaning how much time you had to pay off the previous mortgage, and then in getting the new mortgage, if you now get a 30-year amortization, it could also equal you paying less than what you're paying now and still getting the ability to move up to that bigger home, right? So, and even with that, it's again the option of what about like in the first scenario that you stated where you refinance simply and pull out the money, keep that property and buy another one, right? And whether you choose to live in the new one and rent out your pre-existing one or vice versa, that's your choice, right? But a lot of times I think the big point is that people don't know what they don't know, as we said, right? And they definitely need to explore their options, right? I mean, there's so many misconceptions out there, even with a pre-approval, like people feel like they've got pre-approved and they're good to go, right? But it's
No,
like,
no, we know that's not correct.
Changes in your dynamics from the start, or if we're asking these questions and you're telling us, yes, this is what's happening, right? If later on, when it's time to actually cross that finish line and everything's not equaling what was said from the start, or some dynamic has changed, then guess what? That pre-approval is worth nothing, right? And I mean, a lot of times people, I'm not saying don't get pre-approved because it's very important. You're better off to be pre-approved than not pre-approved and think that you're just going to work it out. But what I'm saying is that don't think that the pre-approval means that you're approved, right? That's why it's called pre-approval is the point.
And it's, you know, when I'm explaining initially, because there's got to be an orientation, right? So it's like, tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them.
Mm-hmm.
So the orientation is that the pre-approval, the earlier that you can identify what your buying power is, the better.
Yeah.
There's no harm. And this is the one thing that, like, I want people to know the truth. And you're right, there's so many myths out there. And the fear, I'm sure that there's many people, Andre, where, you know, they like, we are our own worst critics. So we can be looking at our personal scenario and say, well, you know, I'm just going to wait a little longer, depending on our personality styles. So if we're very safe, you know, and there's different ways to, then they may hold off. And yet when I speak with people and then I ask those preliminary questions, you know, so just out of curiosity, are you working full time? Okay. And how much do you annually make a year? All right. And how much savings, how much liquid cash do you have?
Yeah.
Do you have any other savings, RSPs, TFAs? All right. Do you have children? At least a ballpark idea. Yeah. And then I get that idea. And the moment I hear when they have, like, you know, a decent amount of savings, but then they still may want to continue to save, you know, I encourage them. I said, well, you know what, no matter how we look at this, you want to find out what your buying power is, even if you do have buying power, because at least once you know where you are, then you know where you've got to go to get to where you want to go. But if you don't know where you are, you won't until you speak with a mortgage broker. And I emphasize mortgage broker because I wanted them to work with people, like people that are going to work for them. You know, love the fact that we've got our institutions, our financial institutions.
Yeah.
But when people are looking at doing, especially when they're first-time home buyers, we know there's a lot more people now that are self-employed. They work 2 or 3 jobs. Those 9 to 5, they've been long gone for a while.
Yep.
And I remember in 2013, listening to an international trendsetter, and just I'd learned that then it was going to shift. A lot of the big, large bricks and mortars were not going to last. And it makes sense. I mean, you can only, like, even shareholders, you're gonna have the impact on people if you keep trying to pay the shareholders every quarter. So it's different conversation, but it is what it is.
Yes,
So.
yeah, no, 100%. You're absolutely right. That people need to really not self-proclaim where they stand without actually getting it validated, right? Because
and don't fear it.
People say, I'm gonna wait, I'm not ready yet. And then, like you said, it's like now when they feel they're ready, they go and talk to somebody and they're like, listen, you needed to do this was necessary, right? Especially, post bankrupt or consumer proposals, and you gotta have 2 years discharge with 2 active trading lines for 2 years, right? It's very important for a deal to get you in that predicament. And a lot of times people are discharged, but then they never got any new credit. So then now you only can sit within that B lender category with 20% down. But
yeah, I didn't know that.
Hey,
and I'm honest, I did not know that.
Right? Yeah. And then they wait, and then now 2 years past the discharge, they're like, okay, I'm ready now. I think everything's good. And then you go and check it out and they have no credit still, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, if we would have talked earlier, guess what? This would have been fixed, right? Or there's so many different little, tips and tidbits that a broker knowing options and getting to see your picture can give you a blueprint to follow, right? And that's the key, right?
I mean, if there's a message that I really want people to take away from this, Andre, is just like you said, it is start the process early. And early means the moment you start thinking about you want to buy, period.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter what your situation is. I cannot emphasize that enough. Mm-hmm. And the second is, you want to ask as many questions as you can. But I think the real kind of important thing I'm hearing here is we want to have people be working with those that have done this for a long period of time. So interview a few mortgage brokers, if that be the case. You as a consumer, you're the one. I look at this as the moment you decide you're a chief financial officer, you're going to go buy a business, you better ask as many questions. It's your money, your decision, everything. So ask as much as you can, but know it's a solution. It's not a checking the boxes off. Just like you say, because once they propose something, if they're buying with somebody else, or there may be different ways or just giving them suggestions that can help them.
Yep, absolutely. You're spot on, right? I always say every day I'm looking for a new employer, right? So because as you touched on earlier, right, I am self-employed, but my employers are the customers, the people that I get to help, right? So I'm grateful, that when I get hired, I get ignited again, right? So
yes. Well, I really value kind of where we are, Andre, and for those that are watching and so forth. I'm Michelle Carty, CC Realty, and this is Andre Dawkins. Call Andre, and that's all you got to. I love the digital footprint. That's really important, easy to find. I don't want to be looking at 18 million. Just call Andre. So for those that are kind of watching us and so forth, and we see this pattern and trend, Andre, that I'd say out of every 10 people I speak with, 6 of them don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So that being the case, it's so important to have this kind of relation and rapport and partnership. So I'm able to refer, they're ready, we have and it's helping educate. And then we've got, people that follow up, et cetera, but it's just really helping educate them ongoing.
So important.
Yes, really, really, really important. If we can help people avoid the shoulda, coulda, woulda, then connect with us is what I would say. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So that being said, I'm going to hold you on for a couple more minutes, but I am going to kind of ask that different, just off topic.
Yep.
Andre, we talk a lot about, the real estate and where we are and what we're doing. And I also know you've been doing this for some time, and you've got a lot of really well-established clients. They work with whatever, but you must develop, good, like just how it feels, because would it be fair to say it almost becomes a little bit like a family?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely. Most definitely. And yes, that's the greatest joy is looking at people's faces that I've helped in the past, and that, when they come back and entrust me to work on their behalf another time and another time again, that just brings the most joy and satisfaction. I'm grateful and, you know, humbled and blessed to know that, you know, I changed somebody's life, right? That's the key. So I'm grateful for that. And, you know, on regular basis, I kind of have a, you know, family outing, as you would call it, like a nice celebration for my clients and customers. And, you know, looking forward to next year with COVID being free and we can do that again. So,
and we will, pandemics, they don't last. They do end. So we will see a means to the end. And, you know, but in the interim, we wear our masks and, you know, and if we still have to wear masks by the next summer, Andre, then we do physical distancing and still do something and wear the masks.
Yeah. This too shall pass, definitely.
This too shall pass, yes. So for those that are watching, and I'm going to just thank you immensely, Andre, a really wealth of knowledge. Just, you know, want to be able to have you on more, you know, do more of this, if you will. And Andre Dawkins, folks, he's a mortgage broker that we work with, we refer. He's done some great things already, and I just look forward to the future. And just to get the information that doesn't cost you guys anything.
Yep.
Get questions answered. So, because when we're going to do it, we're going to do it whether we have the homework done or not. That's the way our brains work. Emotion.
Yep, absolutely. And yes, it's been a pleasure to work with you and your team. And I'm looking forward to future of a long-lasting relationship, right? So definitely.
Yep. Wonderful. So have a blessed evening. Thank you. And everybody just go and enjoy your evening and stay safe.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Hey,
and remember, call Andre.
Call Andre. So, all right. Bye, Andre. Bye, everyone.
Michelle.